Bob, let me ask you this. On page 4 of the February 23rd edition of the International Forecaster, you had talked a little bit about the possibility that Hillary Clinton had pledged U.S. assets to the Chinese as collateral, which may have included land. Is there any other follow-up on that?
Well, first of all, we heard stories like this going back about a year and a half, but never any confirmation. And then the UAE Times came out a few weeks ago and said that they thought that the story was right and it was on and it was reality. And, you know, the story is very probable because of the conditions that the Chinese are in holding $1.12 trillion worth of Treasury and agency paper. But what happened was, after a number of people quoted the article, it disappeared. Now, the question is, did it disappear because government made it disappear, or did it disappear because it was false information? We just don't know. And from here on out, we have to treat it as though it really doesn't exist until we can get proof that it does.
Right. But one thing that is interesting about that is that even if the Chinese have pretty much made it clear that they don't want anything to do with our Treasury debt at this point, so that's why we have QE, and the Fed is in there buying. and that's a Ponzi scheme. And what does that mean, Bob, to the average American, to the person who's listening to this that is interested in silver? They understand the silver story to some degree. They understand the precious metals provide a safe harbor against economic calamity, but they don't really understand the Fed. They don't really understand QE. This is going to end horrifically for the middle class, for the working poor. Can you help us understand, Bob, what this means and how badly it's going to end?
The leverage. The Fed has $60 billion in cash, so to speak. They have $3 trillion in debt. It includes toxic waste, which are bonds which contain mortgages. It's got treasuries. They get agencies. They bought a lot of that toxic waste from the Chinese, incidentally. And they're going to keep right on printing money, which means that the American public is responsible for those debts. $3 trillion worth now. And so the commitment by the Federal Reserve, although privately owned by banks in the United States and in Europe and banking families, we're still on the hook. And if they are unable to pay, or if they're disbanded, or any one of those kind of things, then the American public's going to have to pay it. And how I think this is all going to turn out is this way. There's going to be a meeting, just like the Smithsonian meeting of the early 70s, Plaza Accord of 85, the Louvre Accord of 87. Big meeting. Every currency is revalued and devalued against one another. Mm-hmm. Multilateral settlement of debt, whether it's for 50 cents in the dollar or 30 cents for the dollar, or a 0-0, we don't know. And we might call it a giant modern Jubilee. But
a Jubilee for who? It's not going to be the Jubilee for the guy sitting on the $200,000 mortgage, is it? He's not going to get his debt forgiven.
Well, we'll have to get to that in a minute.
Okay.
And so if they do that, then they're going to have to pick whether they can't use the SDR because you can't have a gold-backed. They're going to have a gold-backed currency. Whether it's a combination of 5 or 10 currencies, which I think is unwieldy. They would be inside of an index and they would change their value every second of every day, 24/7. And the easiest way to do it is take down the dollar, adjust it, perhaps to 30 cents on the dollar, and back it with 25% gold at $6,000 or $8,000 an ounce, which would make it easy for the gold backing, because the numbers would be higher. And then the dollar could again be the world reserve currency in a healthier atmosphere like we had prior to August 15, 1971. That's the way I think it's going to turn out. Now, as far as debt's concerned, I don't know, and nobody knows until we get there. If they make people pay back debt on the original amount, everybody in the country would be broke.
Right.
Not everybody, but most of the people.
Right.
And so there's going to have to be an adjustment there of some kind. What it'll be, I don't know. When I talk to people, particularly the subscribers, I tell them, look, pay your debt in a normal manner and take every single dime you've got and you buy gold and silver coins and shares, bullion if you choose, but all the leverage is in the shares. Mm-hmm. And incidentally, for those people out there who would like to see our latest releases in the shares, we'll send it to you along with a copy of the forecaster. Just email us at Bob, B-O-B, at INTFORECASTER.com. That's Bob at intforecaster.com. And we'll send you the stocks, send you the copy of the publication, and of course we hope that you subscribe because we have no other source of income. But we do have thousands of subscribers, and quite frankly, money's not important to me. But anyway, that's the place to be. And as you said, if you want to save what you've got, you put it in gold and silver related assets.
Absolutely, and you know, we could spend some time talking about the 100-to-1 paper fraud manipulation in the gold and silver markets. I've covered that pretty much exhaustively on my channel. So before I let you go, what I really want to ask you about, Bob, is this idea that what we're seeing around the world, as Webster Tarpley is calling it, is we're seeing an orgy of destabilization. And Webster's calling it the last breath of imperialism. And he's referring specifically to what the Pentagon is doing, what the CIA is doing, along with the MI5, MI6, the Brits.
Out of chaos comes their order.
Right.
Destabilization. They're going to go after Iran. They don't want anybody helping Iran because they got their own problems. And so that's why you're seeing these problems in Jordan, Yemen, Bahrain, Libya. They want to steal Libya's oil like they did in Iraq, and so on. And how long this will go on, I don't know, but they're paving the way for the ultimate clash, which could cause World War III. And whether it'll be 6 months or a year from now or longer, I don't know. Nobody does. And I don't think they know either.
I think that where we should finish here, Bob, is to talk about, for the folks that are out there that email you and say, why in the world would the controllers want to kill the goose that laid the golden egg? Why would they want to destroy America? Why, if what you're saying is true, it makes no sense. Why would they do it? And the answer, as far as I can tell, Bob, is that it is part of, you can call it a Luciferian plan if you want. It is part of their plan to usher in a one-world government. And as Lindsey Williams has said, to make you all so poor, you won't be able to fight back. What's your take on that?
Well, I said it long before Lindsey did, and I've been running on this theme for a long time, along with Monteith, who has his own programs, and I've been on the air with him, I think, for 18 years now. And he and I came out of the same background and environment from a psychopolitical direction. And yes, that's what it's all about. To bring particularly Europe and the United States to its knees, financially and economically, to force them to accept world government. And that's really what this is all about. I read an article describing how the only way they could take the United States down is by having, and it wasn't called that then, free trade, globalization, offshoring, and outsourcing.
Right.
And they have ripped the heart out of America.
They have.
Because all of the money in America, for all intents and purposes, emanates from manufacturing. And once that's gone, America is helpless.
Right.
And that's why the transnational corporations and Wall Street and banking have pushed this. Unless we have tariffs on goods and services, America will be destroyed.
You're right, and when I was in high school, Bob, none of it made sense to me. Even when I was a young boy and I heard about the JFK assassination, and my mother explained to me that the theory was that one man had done it alone. She wasn't quite certain that that was the case, but then I learned about the Warren Commission's magic bullet theory. They had to create a magic bullet, Bob, to sell that to the American people. And people stood down; they accepted that their good president had his head shot off, and that a magic bullet did it. And it's incomprehensible to me that people could swallow follow that and essentially stand down as their government was taken over. And then, 9/11 happened, and that was the real awakening for me. But I never understood it, Bob. I didn't understand it when Al Gore was on Larry King trying to sell the American people on globalization and offshoring corporations and free trade, and it made no sense to me then, and now it's real clear. It was all part of a much bigger plan.
Well, it's an evolutionary process of learning. It's like dialectics in a way, where you go forward 2 steps and then you go back 1. And when you go back 1, you say, gee, what I learned in step 1 and 2 wasn't quite right. And then you go forward 3 steps and you learn lots more and come back 2. So it's an accumulative process. And that's why G. Edward Griffith and myself, Anthony Hilda, Stan Monteith, that's how we're able to present what we have, because we've gone through more than 50 years of that process. So we know all of the ins and outs of what have to be known to bring the story together and bring it as simply as possible so everybody can understand it.
Absolutely. And the gift that you're giving all of us, Bob, is taking the time to share these stories and to keep the rest of us who care enough to listen anchored in the truth of the past and anchored in the truth of the present. And that is the best way that we can all get awake and wake up others and take our country back. And so, Bob, I just want to thank you again for all your time, all your work. I want to thank you for the International Forecaster. I want to thank you for taking the time to do these types of interviews. Thanks for all you do, Bob.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for listening. And I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, and Bob, I want to ask you, how do folks get the International Forecaster? Because I've read it. It's fantastic. Like I said, it's 40 pages long, twice a week. How do people get it?
Well, the forecast is about business, finance, economic, social, political issues all over the world. We publish on Wednesdays and Saturdays, about 40 pages each time by email. We have a hard copy that goes out twice a month for those who are not on the Internet. Everything that you need to know every week about what's going on in the world is in that publication. You can get a free introductory copy by going to theinternationalforecaster.com. And as I mentioned before, if you want our stocks, if you want a free copy, you can email us at bob@intforecaster.com. That's bob@inforcaster.com. Or you can call toll-free 877-479-8178, and you're going to get either copy there. And they have a special offering for a free 1-year subscription to the Forecaster. The deal that they're offering is fantastic. I want people to know what's happening to them and be able to save the world, never mind the United States.
Well, Bob, thanks again for all your time. We sure do appreciate it. Can we talk again in the future?
Yes.
All right, I look forward to it. Thanks, Bob.
As always, guys, thanks for watching. Good night.